So while he does that, let me introduce the speakers of the current session. We will begin with Rotarian Principal Dr. Dana Sinha. She graduated in architecture from MS University, Baroda, and holds a PG diploma in education management from the SNDT Women's University. She took to nurturing her passion for history and archaeology after superannuating from the post of principal PV Polytechnic, SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. I am not believing that she superannuated. She was awarded a PhD for her research into the cultural history of medieval Assam in 2012. So that's many hats: architecture, education, medieval Assam. Later, she did a course in archaeology at the Center for Extramural Studies at Mumbai University at present, and is involved as an active founder, participant, and independent researcher at the CEMS Institute and Ancient Museums team. Dr. Dana Sinha. Ms. Saparna Joshi is a journalist whose passions include archaeology, travel, and languages. She has been a student of archaeology at the Center for Extramural Studies, Mumbai University, and has participated in several workshops and conferences organized by Institute. Her abiding interest in anything with a whiff of antiquity has spurred her to take keen interest in ancient Indian board games, which she hopes to promote among the younger generations in the country. Shri Aparna Joshi.
So, Yogi, can you have the lights off in the front, please?
Aparna has to do the introduction. It's working. These two little children are playing. They are playing in a village. It's our native village in Assam, Dhubri district, very close to Bengal and Bihar. And they're playing in mud, by digging holes in the mud, and they're playing with stones. They don't have to have a board, nor do they have to get any chowdhuries or any playing pieces. This Mandara board is used by us, the Langri board is used by us. They don't have to do that at all. They just anywhere.
Hi everybody. What we saw just now was a game handed down from generations, played in exactly the same way the great grandmothers of these little girls and maybe their grandmothers must have played it centuries ago. Little has changed in the rules and little in the materials used. There's also little change in the way the game is still played hundreds of kilometers away from here in the south of India. In fact, this slide shows a life-size clay model of the Palampudi game being played by the women of South India, and it occupies pride of place in the Chennai area. We've heard much about this apparently simple and yet intriguing game Mankala. Okay, sorry. We've heard much about this apparently simple yet intriguing game Mankala from several speakers here today. About how it's played during marriage rituals, as a custom that predicts the harvest of the year, and even as an ascension to the throne ritual. According to Alex DeVoot, one of the prime authorities on the subject we have relied on for our presentation today, Mankala has been compared to war, trade, and other situations in which goods or people changed hands, resulting in the pieces being called soldiers, cows, money, prisoners, or even wives. So we have decided to make this presentation a simple story about the journey of Mankala over the ages, a story about the game with many names. Over to you, Brother.
Thanks. Now, next slide, please. are looking at this one game, we can't call it by one particular name because there are many names all over the world.
A little louder, please.
Yeah. They have Puri, Balanguri. Puri means Spitz. Ro is a particular alphabet which is very natural to Tamil, not in any other language. So we say Balanguri, not Guzi, even though we spell it like that. In this we use all the varieties of seeds, stones or chori, anything to play with, and each player generally drops the seeds as you've seen in the picture into one of those bowls, and that's how we play. And when it comes to capturing the seeds, we have to capture the seeds. Each player has to get the maximum number of seeds that they play. And what are the rules for capturing the seeds? The rules are as per the game. And what are the rules? They are depending upon the names of the games. And as you can see from this slide, the names are so many. It's called a Mankala group of game, but Mankala as such is not the name anywhere. Bao is somewhere on the east side of Africa, Sumka is in Philippines, Chongkak is in Indonesia, Satko is in India, the center of India, Owari is in the western part of Africa, Alivilimani is in Karnataka, Kalamiki in Tamil Nadu, and also in Sri Lanka. So you have the sum of the names, just some of the names. There are so many names all over as you will see. Next slide please. Who invented, next slide please. Who invented this game? We really don't know who invented it. It's shrouded in mystery. People say that if you see that small thing down there, they found the old board in Ain Ghazal in Jordan on the floor of a pre-pottery Neolithic site. That was in 5,870 BC, almost 6,000 years ago, plus 1,000 AD. It comes to like 8,000 years ago. There was this statue found over there, lying on the stomach, and at the back of the statue there were holes. There are 2 rows like Languri holes over there on the back side. That was considered to be a Mandala board, so that was the oldest. But then one claim that picture you can see over there. So we cannot actually say who invented it and where it was invented. Next. The origin, still there is no consensus about it. People say that the etymology comes from Mankala, it comes from Napala, but it sounds weird, rather vague to me, and I don't know what Napala is Mankala. Anyway, but that's the way it is written in the research books. Today there are online versions, and there are many different variants of the Mankala game. It was in Sumeria. Sumeria is a very ancient civilization in the Fertile Crescent. So Egypt and Mesopotamia, Sumeria. So this was the region most probably was.
Little louder, please. Louder.
Next slide. The history of the Mandala. Again, here you see how you start those videos. They're all videos, and you see the African people with their spears playing the game, and there's another old picture of Mankala being played. So these are played as sowing and harvesting game by the agriculturists. Is played like cows being gathered after at sunset by the shepherds or the pastorals. But it's not always played for fun, say the historian. There are some meaning behind playing. One of the meanings may be that it was a ritual. For example, in Indonesia, they plant the seeds as per the timing, which is defined by the Mankala. And it is played as a tool for divination, as an ancient record keeping perhaps. We don't know why it was just maybe for record keeping too. In the Tuluva community in Western Karnataka, they have it as a very spiritual ritual, and it's something which they do as a ritual during the marriages, during other festivals. In a particular time, they play these games, and there are many rules which Aparna will tell you later about ritual and the rules which are associated with the Thuluva people. Next. Where in the world was it played? Is it good? Is it still played? And when it was played? It was played in Northern Africa, in Ghana, and across the ocean, Indian islands. The slave trade went on over there, so perhaps the slaves carried it around. Owari is just one of the names. There are about 15-20 names in Northern Africa itself. Bao is a game played in eastern part of Africa. Madagascar, it started from Madagascar and it went to the eastern part of Africa like Kenya and Zimbabwe, etc. Then it's played in the Maldives Islands. Maldives Islands, they say it looks like a mala, and only the Indians came to know and they called it Maldives, Mala Dvipa. Only if you go up into the sky, you can come to know that it's a mala. How did the ancient Indians come to know it was a mala? That's a mystery. Indians know many things, but we never let people know how we know it. The mandala was played. In this picture, you can see is a harem picture in Turkey, and the two maids in the harem, they are busy playing mandala. Next slide. It has 800 different names, at least 800 different names on the planet, and it can be played in different ways. If you can see there on the top, you will see a 4-line mandala. That's Bao, what they play in East Africa. 4 lines of mandala, and some of those boards are really huge. And sometimes the men, sometimes the children who are playing. And here there's a foreigner playing with a small village boy. In these African places, it's placed, it's always played in open, not played indoors. It's always an open game, and always a street corners in all lookers, they're always playing the mandala, the Africans. Next. This is Madagascar, they're playing Bao. First Madagascar, there's some group of people called the Sakalavas. We read about it and I thought it was very interesting that the Sakalavas are actually from Indonesia, Indonesian islands, and they landed up in Madagascar. I don't know whether they brought mandala with them or was it before the mandala period. We don't know, but then that is the group of people who came from Indonesia to spread the Mangala game to not only Madagascar but then the adjoining part of Africa. They use 4 rules. Next. Now, Ovalu is the name given in Maldives to the same game. Here you see all over the world different names are given. And it's also called Ovalu Goldie, and Alexander Difford, who we are referring to always for in-depth study of Mandala all over the world, he says that the rules are very similar to Sunka, which is in the Philippines. Now, between Philippines and Maldives, there is a whole lot of other places like India, like Sri Lanka, and there is also the Indonesian islands, which have got very different set of rules, but the rules in Philippines and the rules in Maldives are same, and Alexander Wood has an explanation for that, which we will talk about later. Next. Sunga and the Philippines. Now, Sunga is the name where it's traditionally a woman's game. Now, these people were matrimonial people. So, the head of the house was always women, and to the women who played the game, that means the head of the house had the privilege of playing the game rather than children and men. So, here we say that the rules are different. And the rules are different from even the Indonesian islands because father, Jesuit priest, who talked about these games right back in 1692 when he told the world about the game played in Philippines. Next. Konglat is the game played in Indonesia. This got another name now. And these are the beautiful boards which they made for it, made out of very hard wood, very beautifully carved out. And they're played here again by women. Originally, when maybe the merchants who were traveling to the Spice Islands, they would have brought it and they would have talked about it to the royal families or the noble families, the rich families. And it was first played by the Javanese nobility rather than the common man. Later on, the common man also started playing it, but again, it is a women's game. And here they are talking about divining. In Central Java, it was used by farmers to calculate the seasons, to know when to plant and to harvest, as well as to predict the future. Next slide. Now, Turkish football. This is in Central Asia. The Central Asian countries were all under the Russian regime, and for so many years, as long as USSR lasted, these guys had no liberty to play any games. Forget about Mankala. And one now they become independent. The first thing they've done is revive their old games, and all of them are playing their old games once again. This Turkish Korgul was, the meaning of this is 9 sheep droppings. 9 sheep droppings. Turkish being 9 and sheep droppings. See, they were all nomads earlier. They were the Mongols who came and attacked us, remember? So, those sheep droppings were the only thing that they had to play with. And it's hard. When I was a child, I was in school, I remember there was a class called social work, and I was doing the job of powdering the sheep droppings. That was my work. Take a stone and powder it. They're hard. So you can easily play with them, I'm quite sure. So they play, can you see that board down there? That is their Turkish Korgul board, and there are 9 holes, and you put 9 points in each one of those holes. That's how it is. 2 things in the middle are the banks, one for this player and one for the opposite player. They are the nomadic teams. They played very vigorously and very happily now that they are relieved of their communist regime. And they have the nomadic games Olympics. They have so many games which they played during those times, and they want to revive all the games and have it every day. This year in December, they're having it in Turkey. The Olympic, the nomadic games, and one of the games is Turkish Korgul, and the other games is like a polo-like game where they play on horseback, and it's not a ball that they're knocking around on their horses, it's a dead sheep, it's a dead goat, and then they have to grab the dead goat and put it into the goal to win the goal. And when they're grabbing, people get hold of 2 different parts, and you can imagine what happens to that dead goat. So it's quite a gory type of a game, I've heard. Next. Now this is in Africa again. This is the Mankala being played anywhere, everywhere. Most popular in Africa. Where is the whole in the whole world where it is played maximum? It's in Africa. There, currently, wherever you go, you will find Mankala being played out in the roadside. Next. Same rules in different countries. Yeah. Okay. This Sunga and Ovalu, why they are common, why they have the same rules, is Alexander Booth has an idea about it. He says that if the merchants are passing by and they pass on the game to the people where they are putting their boats in and exchanging merchandise, that is not enough for the rules to be transferred so firmly into the culture of another country. You need to have a lot of people coming from one country and settling in the other country for that, those rules to get imbibed in the culture of the country they are settling in. For that, he thinks that the Philippine people, a big group of them, may have come in and settled in the Maldives, and that is why the Maldives culture has got the rules exactly similar to the Philippines and not to Sri Lanka. All the culture of Maldives comes from Sri Lanka, but not the Mangala rules. They are different. They come from Philippines. So that is a very curious fact about the Mangala, where the rules are coming from, where the rules are common. So where the rules are common, perhaps we can go the other way around for from Alexander Woods' theory and say where the rules are common, maybe that civilization moved or people migrated in that way. You can maybe analyze it that way. Next. Yeah.
Yeah, the game obviously traveled. How? Now, Mangala games are known to vary extensively from one place to another. At the same time, there are cases in which Mangala games remain the same during their extensive travels around the world. Not only did they not vary when separated from each other, but this stability of rules remained in place for hundreds of years. Mangala studies indicate that this was the case with Wari, since Wari is almost identical in Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Nigeria on the one hand, and Barbados and Antigua on the other hand. And ocean and hundreds of years of separation characterize the distribution of this game. Similarly, Madagascar, Zanzibar, and Kenya play the same set of complex bow rules. Now, Wood says that these two examples could be explained by the fact that both Wari and bow have been played in an organized way. The organizations of players could, as a rule, refrain the games from changing, while variations would be played by people outside the championship scene. The game being played by children and women, for example. So, many variations of this game travel long distances without changing. The argument that is put forward is that Mangala games have traveled the world and remained stable, whereas a rule brought to other areas by large groups of players moving into that area that played the same game when they moved. Or Mangala games travel by way of frequent contact between players.
Why is Mangala so popular? Today we talked about so many board games today and yesterday, and I don't think any other game is as popular as Mangala all over the world. The Angulimani and the Tiger and Goat, sorry not Angulimani, the Tiger and Goat game and the other games are not played maybe in other countries so much. Mangala. I think we think at least that Mangala is very very popular because it's very easy to play. It can be played just anyway, doesn't require any material at all. You can dig hole in the ground, 2 rows of holes, and play with sheep dropping. You can play with stone, you can play with seed, you can play with just anything under the sun. And it's very simple to play for the simplest people, the shepherds and the nomads. They don't have to have high education to play. At the same time, people are using Mangala game for artificial intelligence. They're using it for high mathematical calculations. The NASA people are researching into Mangala. Why are they doing that? Because it is satisfying that urge of higher education also, higher level of thinking also. So very very calculating game. And another thing about Mangala is that they make some beautiful boards. The Mangala board, they are so beautiful. And the artists, the craftsmen, they get a lot of chance to make these beautiful boards. You will see some of them in the next couple of slides. And they are collectors who collect these Mangala. Our Sophie yesterday, she had brought me a couple of Mangala boards, and she has so many, and all of them are so beautiful, and they are so pretty, and so people are liking to keep and preserve these Mangala boards. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is very popular all over the world. And it's actually very fascinating to play. Anybody who has played Palanguli, you can't easily give it up. You can't give it up, and it gives endless joy, continuous joy. You see many people have here shared the stories of their grandmothers and elder people who are playing it, and it is very very therapeutic too. Lots of benefits are there, physical benefits are there in playing the game. Now, next slide. It's a game of strategy. If you want to play not blindly, just dropping like the children did. But if you want to play it, you have to think about a strategy, and you have to know that when you are picking up a particular pocket and sharing it, where is going to end and how is it going to affect the coins that the other guy is going to collect from you in case you go wrong, in case your calculation go wrong. Flight is a remedy when you know that other guys come to capture your stones or your pieces. What do you do? So you have to empty the pocket quickly, as fast as possible, so when that guy arrives, he'll find an empty pocket, he'll get more seeds. So that is a flight that you have to adopt. Then there is a threat. Okay, so this your partner is the game, the guy opposite you is trying to attack you and trying to grab the coins. You give him a threat instead of he coming closer to you, you put a threat in his way. So he gets so scared to try to defend himself that he forgets to attack you. So that is another tactic which is used to win at the game. Yeah. Next. Where is it played? It's played just anywhere. You will see a wedding. I think bride in the room playing Mankala. It is played in the fields. It is played. Here, see two couple of old ladies have kept their baggage aside. They must have been carrying head loads. They kept their head loads aside and dug some hole in the ground and they were busy playing Mankala. So just play by various rules, by various names in various places. I just would like to share something very interesting with you here. Sometime back, we had a German lady invited by Ramesh sir come here to meet us and talk about chess basically. And then she shared something very interesting with us, which even Raghu had mentioned yesterday about the game played by Yudhishthira and Shakuni Mama. So she said that the game that they played, according to her research, Germans do much more research than us. They have lots of immunology books that we also don't possess. So she says that I've studied it very deeply and I think that the name of the game is Akshadhuta, and it is played with Akshar, that are the pieces, and Dhuta is the name of the game, and it's played with a bowl, and all the coins are put in the bowl, and there's a cloth spread out, and you grab a lot of coins, and the way to count the number of coins is that you have a Krita. Krita means multiples of 4. And then you have Kali. Kali means 4 and 1 more. And you have Dwapara, which means 4 and 2 more. And you have Treta, which means 4 and 3 more. And then you have the Krita again, which is all 4. So this round is the round of the completeness of things, I don't know what. But then if you are getting a Kali, you are out. I mean, it's a very bad thing. And he, Shakuni, threw the dice and he said 4, Krita, and he made sure, because he was a magician, he was a trickster, if he found that 4 was not there, he added more, or he subtracted some to make it multiple of 4. So when it fell on the cloth, it was multiple of 4. So Yudhishthira, poor guy, he never got to handle the game at all. He never got to play a single game by himself. He only had to bet, and he kept, Shakuni kept winning the bet, and he lost everything. So that was the game according to Renate, which they played. It's got nothing to do much with Palanguri, but I thought it was quite interesting to share it. The different names of Palanguri are next. How to play the game, that I will say. But in Tamil Nadu, it is called Pashupandi, Saripandi, Muthupandi, Rajapandi, Kashipandi, Kattupandi, Sitapandi, many things like that. And other names are in Karnataka, Karu, Barua, Atta, Tara Timbata, Hega Timbata, Mule Atta, Bule Pergu, and Joda Pergu. These are all the names just for one game. Different places, different names. So how do you play this game? See, those are the little pockets, and the two corner big pockets are the bands. The right hand side belongs to the player, and the other side, the left hand side belongs to the opposite player. And you pick up any group of coins in any pocket, and you start dropping them around. And you put one in your store also, and then go around. Don't put anyone in the other store. And then you go on playing. If you come to an empty pocket, then you grab the coins which are on the other side and also your side. Okay? So that's the way you play the game. Next slide. Now coming.
We need to practice.
Yeah. Next, this particular thing again was found by us on a blog spot. He says that the Pallava king made a copper plate inscription in Sanskrit and Tamil, which says that gives the borders of the land which was donated to a Jain teacher, and one of the borders of the landmark is the Palanguri Ka. What is important here is the word Palanguri. He's used the word Palanguri, that means in 550 AD, when this copper plate was written, the word Palanguri was there. So perhaps the game also was there, that is why the word is there. Next. Indian mythology, of course, you know, it's said in Indian mythology, Sita played Palanguri when she was imprisoned by Ravana in Ashokavana, and she played it with Sita, with Ram when she was in the forest, and Shivji and Parvati also played it in Yasha, they say, and I already told you about Akshadita of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So, where is it played in India? If it is just imported game by the merchants, then it will be along the coast. But in every nook and corner of India, you will see that Palanguri being played. The same game is called by different names in different places, are given the names in different states. Totka Bola in Punjab, and in Assam it is called Maukar Katia, in Mizoram, Wild Luthran, etc.
Just one point, Maharashtra is not denoted here because there wasn't something, but in an earlier presentation today we had Sojmals find in the Aishwareshwar temple in Sinha, right? So that Maharashtra, there are not many references to the game being played in Maharashtra, but definitely this was there. So, okay, I think the counters, anything you can play with, is just limited by your imagination. You have tamarind seeds, cowries, gemstones, sheep droppings, pebbles, beads, just about anything. We just wanted to make a small case study about how it's played in the Siri cult in Tamil Nadu. Chennai, it's called Chennai and Chennai, which literally means beautiful in Tulu. And it's played and it plays an important role in the Siri cult of South Canada. Next. So this game is essentially played in the rainy season. That's when families have a little free time. After sowing the field, they wait for the good crops, and in this free time, they play these games for recreational purposes. And next. Okay, so this was one thing which Ramesh had seen, that I had got this in Hampi. So this was just one slide of the Karnataka thing. And what we found was that in villages near Hampi, children often play without a board. They create their own playing areas by scooping out holes, collecting stones or seeds or whatever is at hand. And when they're playing near the river, they play with smooth pebbles. In the agricultural area with seeds. So they use tamarind, temeri, corn kernels, anything. Next. Just one small thing which is odd customs in the Siri cult is that playing the game by the male heads of the boys and girls' families during the marriage negotiation ceremonies. It's regarded as a good omen if the girls' party loses. And there's another prohibition that you can't lend out the board overnight, or you can't gamble also. Now, more prohibitions concern the players. Sisters are not permitted to play the game together, and nor are brothers. Even if mother's brother, sister, son can't play together, nor husband and wife. Now, the game is not normally played among men except in association with the marriage alliance. Next. So these are just like various ones we found as Mankala boards as an art form, which is something very striking. Next. Mankala has been represented in a lot of art, different kinds of art. It's gone on to several postage stamps, paintings, and we saw earlier there was a painting of an Turkish harem, I think. Next. Again, several ones. And the one you see there is since right. So we found it exceptionally beautiful, and then we said, oh, it's right here. It was so beautiful. Yeah. Next. Okay, I think Radha would like to take this quickly.
This is just a list of the benefits. There are lots of benefits of playing Mankala. It's very good for memory and cognitive function, IQ. I think a lot of people have spoken about advantages of playing. No dementia, no Alzheimer's, no low blood pressure, no stress, etc. And in reference to Selimane, I have one thing to say, that it really teaches us relationships. Social relationships, how you build and where you have to lose. Many times you have to lose a game and you must know when to lose and when not to lose. When I was a new bride, I went to Assam as a bride. I'm from South India and I had no idea about the culture of Assam. And it was Holi time, people were playing Holi, they were putting colors. So I also started taking color and I saw a couple of young boys over there and I put color on them. I did not realize who they were. Just part of the village. That was the first time I came to the village. And those boys were so angry with me. They came and dumped one whole big bottle of very brilliant color on me. They said, you are our daughter-in-law. Don't you know that I'm your father-in-law's brother? So I'm as good as your father-in-law. And you put color on your father-in-law? Very bad. Come to me with color. So there are many rules of social behavior which we don't know. We've got to cover our head in front of our father-in-law. We must not put the elder brother of our husband. We have to observe a lot of restrictions. So these things we never knew, and Mankala teaches these things. I think in Selimane, you learn these relationships very, very subtly by knowing when to lose. You must, if your brother and your brother-in-law, if you're playing with the sala, then you must allow the husband or the sister to win like that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is like Mankala has gone online and there are various versions there which I think the new generations are playing. Next. So it's unfortunately it's no longer a national favorite, but for being played for centuries. So most households will have an antique Palamuri set at home, but hardly being played. Next. We should bring back the game, love for the game, as we have seen over here in the last 2 days, and we know how the ways to go about it now, so we won't waste time here. Okay, so just one last word, I think just want to quote Woot again, because he says that there are many reasons for Mankala to survive. It can be played anywhere, its rules are simple, yet endlessly stimulating, and it can be a pleasant addiction for all ages. There are many futures for Mankala, and there are many ways of looking at the game. Thank you from both of us.